Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting session of questions and answers on Kabbalah with senior Kabbalah instructor Tony Kosenic. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your patience as we went live. It always makes it even more exciting when we have a slight technology glitch. So thank you for hanging in there waiting for us. You can type your questions in the chat, and also you can type in your location in the chat as well. I'll read those a little bit later in the broadcast. We do provide simultaneous translation in Spanish, and I will make note of questions from our Spanish-speaking viewers as they come in. Some of you may be joining for the first time. Others may have returned because something piqued your interest in the last Q&A. And we also have students who are already studying Kabbalah with us as well. Wherever you're at on your journey, every question is beneficial to everyone else who is listening. So please send in your questions. Just ask. Tony, very excited to be with you today for another Q&A. It's always great to see you.
Thanks, Mary. In Kabbalah, questions are very important. Why do they happen? They're not a sign of your ignorance or your doubt or confusion. They're really a vessel for your soul. Questions are the tools by which we grow. And the entire path of Kabbalah begins with one question: what is the purpose of my life? And from that single spark, all growth spiritually comes. And that's because a question isn't something that we create, it's something that we receive. That desire that we feel in us is actually placed in us. It's a call from the Creator to us, saying that He wants contact with us. And it's a form of awakening from the level above us. So your questions are extremely important. And in Kabbalah, we never fear a question. We cherish it, because having the question is already half of the answer. And without a question, there's no place really for light to enter. So your question's important. It's the motion of your soul towards the upper light. And every question that you ask that's specifically about the meaning of your life or the nature of you and your connection to the Creator, that kind of a question brings you from finite to infinite and from concealment into a higher awareness. So, what question's alive in you today? So, Mary, let's start.
Okay, let's go to the first question. It comes from Claire Ducree, viewing on YouTube. When someone is in a turning point in life, when almost everything has gone and remains only with faith, what does one do?
Well, that is a beautiful state. And you've kind of defined it in your question. That everything that your way of seeing and your way of feeling and what you think your life is about, what you want, all of that changes. The basis of your life changes. You're on the doorstep of a new state. And in your question you said, and all that's left is faith. Oh, it's a really beautiful place. We have to understand what to do in those moments that we call the need for faith. That's a moment where it's possible for a person to turn to recognize the greatness of the Creator, and that we don't really write our lives. We are something that's in the process of revealing what the actual reality of our life is, how totally connected we are to the upper force, how dependent we are on the upper force, because everything that we've relied on up to this moment has seemingly dropped away. So now a dialogue can happen with this greatness that is all of reality, that is putting this opportunity in front of us. This is the point that Kabbalah calls prayer, because what you're going to be asking for will be about all of your life. It'll be about what you're doing and why you're doing it. You'll be asking for help from the only place that it can come, which is from that upper force, and asking that, well, this is important. Recognizing the opportunity that's before you at this moment to have your life reshaped according to the reason that you were actually created. Now there's nothing in your way, really, except the turning to the Creator and to kind of lower your head, which the Creator has helped to lower your head in this situation, and to go forward asking for the upper force to build your life along the path in which it was always intended, without the illusions that hid this from you, which was the former life and situation that you had, and build from that point. Mary?
Tony, the next question comes from Spanish-speaking viewer Glavia Castillo. Shalom from Cartagena, Colombia. Tony, you have said that desire is a force that motivates us, and if used correctly, it will lead us to cross the spiritual barrier. What does that mean?
We only move according to that force of movement that we feel is really a chain of desires that appear inside of us. And depending on the quality of that desire, whether it's a material desire or whether it's a spiritual desire, a desire for growth and development, that's what leads us on a physical or a spiritual path. Now, we're not responsible really for those desires, even though it seems that way to us, that it's as though we are creating these desires somehow. They're in our DNA or something. But like I said in explaining about why questions are important, these desires are placed in front of us in a very intentional way from above. And we move towards those things because we're being beckoned by something that seems to answer the deepest need that we can sense within ourselves, the most motivating force within us. But these things are placed in us from above, and they're done in a particular sequence that will ultimately lead us to a complete connection with others. We will see ourselves as part of a whole single creature. We will identify with all of creation and be connected through that to the Creator. It's not our mind and the ideas that we have that lead us this way. They help. They're like an operating system that helps the development of a desire. But it's the desire and our response to it that moves us along a path of inner longing and love towards the place that the Creator is leading us through these desires. Mary?
The next question comes from Muska. Why do people who have attained spirituality and revealed the Creator still need to live by the rules of this world? Why do they have to live like the way they did before revealing the Creator?
Because all of the rules of this world are part of the the guidance system. They come from spiritual roots, and they hang down as kind of helping forces. Also, the rules of this world function, their spiritual quality comes from the fact that they're about our interactions with others. And it's through the relationship with others, through a correct relationship with others and connection with others, that we actually attain spirituality. Because spirituality is not individual. It's whole, it's complete. And that means that right now, what we feel as rules that we either keep or we don't keep are something that, as we develop, we feel as an impulse within our own heart to act in that way. Now we've just externalized them, and we feel them as rules or pressure. The more one develops, the more one becomes like those laws and rules in their own heart and wants to act in that manner with nature, with society, with others. And what's actually happening there is we are being connected in our own heart to the spiritual root that set up this whole environment. That's all part of the pressuring forces that develop us towards the spiritual fulfillment.
Tony, the next question comes from Hamid. Hello. If one passes away with unfulfilled wishes and unhappy, what does that indicate and tell about his life journey? Is it a sign that he did not come close to the Creator because he can't feel joy?
There's several ways to answer this. If a person feels unfulfilled, then at the end of his life, then it will be that one hasn't reached a place where they want to serve the Creator's will. That is, we're valuing the wrong thing, if that's what we feel at that point in life. It's not to say that one wants to give up physical life. No, but one can, through the study and practice of Kabbalah, come to that moment and understand what it is, and that it is a good moment and a moment of opportunity. And like every other level of ascent, it is just another one of those, but a big one. And so the antidote to that, finding oneself in that situation, is to understand how nature works with us, that this process of incarnation, so to speak, and death is actually something that happens over and over again within us every time we move and develop into a new state. So at the point if you do that, then the point at which we reach that particular state, it will be recognized just as that.
Tony, the next question comes from a Spanish-speaking viewer, Miguel Saillas. Greetings from Venezuela. Greetings. I am starting today, and I am still in the preparatory stage. I want to know what happens to a person who has not developed their soul at the time of death. Thank you.
According to the Kabbalists, one never loses any of the effort and anything that they have attained in their work towards that. And a person would reincarnate and eventually come to the place where they left off and continue working from there until they see through the concealment.
Boo is back. Welcome back, Boo. Boo has the next question. Does Kabbalah make you superior to non-Kabbalists? If not, why should I practice? And if so, should I keep it a secret so others don't hate me? Is being hated necessary to development?
There's no superiority in Kabbalah, because Kabbalah is a process of complete interconnection with all people and all aspects of the creation and nature, and with the Creator. So there can't be a superiority because of the fundamental law of Kabbalah, which is love your friend as yourself. And those who we consider ignorant of Kabbalah are just those parts of us that are unawakened. And that's not just expressed as an idea. As you grow, that's what one comes to feel. So there's, the attitude is pretty much that when one recognizes their own nature, and what's actually under correction, we see that you're the least. One is the least of all people, and responsible for all people, and for all the conditions that we see, and so on. And it's only through the inner correction, the impulse to serve when we don't want to work against that nature, fundamental nature that we were created with, that looks for superiority. No, what we're looking for is greater life, greater connection, less concealment, less separation, more fulfillment of the heart by being more and more like the very attitude of the force that created us and all of reality in the first place. I don't remember the second part of the question, but I think that'll do.
Yeah, just the last part of the question is being hated necessary to development?
No. It's but the acceptance, the understanding that no, but it happens. All I can say is it happens along the way, that one has to contend with that state, and we all have in our lives, one time or another. It's not really hatred. It really comes from something very deep that needs to be corrected inside of us, and it can be corrected, and it will be corrected. But every step that one takes that overcomes our basic egoistic nature, we feel it as suffering, and we may call that suffering being hated and so on. But that's only a kind of a midpoint of recognizing that this aspect of egoism needs to be corrected, and we might feel it in that particular way. But all of these steps of correction were pre-planned to be doable, and they are.
Our next question comes from Spanish-speaking viewer Liliana Llanos. Could you explain about the screen? I don't quite understand it. Thank you. And she writes, greetings from Peru. Buenos dias, Liliana. Great to have you with us. So could you please explain about the screen?
The screen is basically a desire to advance spiritually without taking advantage of the light that we receive. That is, we don't want to do this for an egoistic reason. We want to experience the development and the fulfillment that comes from our development into higher and higher states, only in order to become more and more like the force of the light itself, the nature of the light itself, which is to bestow, to give and support everything all the time without a thought really for itself. It doesn't think about itself. So the reception of pleasure and fulfillment through spiritual work, through our spiritual work, the screen is that decision to do it only in order to have a better and better and more similar connection to the light, to give pleasure to the light because of the pleasure that we take in it, or the growth that happens in us as a result of it. The screen is a decision to not to receive for the self alone, but to do it in order to fulfill the relationship that's occurring in the light communicating and raising us. So it's an inner attitude which is anti-egoistic.
Thank you, Tony. The next question is from Ed from South Carolina. Rabbis for centuries have said that non-Jews, or no-Lahides, should only study the 5 books of Moses. Does that still stand when studying Kabbalah?
That has never been the case with Kabbalah, ever. All of the books of the Bible and the commentaries on the Bible, including Talmud, are actually interpretations of Kabbalah. They're ways of expressing the Kabbalistic language in a different form. Kabbalah was never restricted. It started in a place before there was any religion around the Bible, but when it was just a direct spiritual teaching. And it predates all of the books that are now associated with Judaism and Christianity. And it is what they are speaking about. And in its earliest form, when it was oral, it was taught to any people from all of the 70 nations who were followers, who believed in the path of that Abraham taught. And they came from all 70 of these, small nations in the area of Mesopotamia. And they're the ones who traveled with him, and meaning they studied with him, and there was no such thing as somebody who was an outsider. The idea of a ger or a goy has to do with one who is studying not for direct connection with the Creator. A direct connection with the Creator is, in fact, the meaning of the word Israel. Yashar El, which means directly to the Creator. That if a person was studying for some other reason, then a Kabbalist wouldn't take this person on as a student, wouldn't expose this science to them, because they wouldn't be able to make any use of it. But it had nothing to do with whether a person was in a religion or of a particular family heritage or anything like that. It had to do with the quality of the student. Mary?
The next question comes from Susan Hickey. Hello, Tony. What practices or perspectives can help me trust more deeply the journey and in the guidance of the Creator? Also, Claire sent in a follow-up question. It's directly related, Tony. What is the best way to strengthen our connection to the Creator? So trust, guidance, connection in the Creator. What practices or perspectives can you offer?
Experience. You have to study. You have to become involved in the process. over and over and over and over again, and constantly looking for your own desire to proceed, and observing, constantly observing how your heart is responding. For whom are you doing it? When something is presented to us that contradicts our ego, and we have to take an inner or an outer or both action that goes against the impulse of the ego, when we observe our own nature in response to the path, the books, and especially our interaction with others on this path, the observation of what's going on there is the one and only practice that will bring us the right kind and enough experience that's exactly on point with the issue and the thing that's under correction. There are no sort of external practices connected at all with this process of spiritual development. It really, that's why we call it study. And the study has to do with being exposed to the texts which present states that we can't really conceive of now, because we are in a concealment that doesn't allow us to see the thing that it's presenting to us. The more we try to understand what it's saying, and we take efforts in the direction that I mentioned, then these things open up to us. It's actually simple. It's baked into life as it is. The only thing is that we don't know what direction to go in. And the real blessing of the Kabbalistic books is it presents to us an actual map by which we can proceed towards, align with and proceed with the whole path that is the purpose of our lives. It reveals what that is. And once you start walking it and trying to walk it well and so on, that is the practice. That's it. There's no more than that. We're built for that, and it will flower in us.
Tony, next up is a question from Emil Nasser from Egypt. Do we have individuals with us, meaning in the world Kli, who are able to attain the higher reality or develop this inner sense or inner device?
Yes, we do. Absolutely. There are people in attainment in the world Kli. But the question is phrased from the side. It's a spiritual question, but it's coming from a corporeal point of view. Because the more that a person is developed, the more that person is identified with the whole, and not as an individual. I mean, you and I are absolutely connected with each other. For your question, and the desire that between us to answer this question is the connection. You already are stepping outside of the individuality as you're involved in this, because your vessel, your question, is dependent on something that perhaps you will believe coming from me, and it's not coming from me, it's coming to me from the larger connection, exactly as it is to you at this moment as you're listening to it. So yeah, there is attainment of people who are part of the study, and larger groupings of people called tens, which is a spiritual working group. Whole tens are also in this attainment, and you can look forward to that.
Tony, just want to let the viewers know that after this Kabbalah Explained Simply Q&A session, each week we have a 1-hour live Q&A session on Zoom where you can join and ask any questions you want about Kabbalah. And Tony will be right there after this to answer them at the top of the hour. So if you look in the chats, there's a link and there'll be instructions there if you'd like to join. And our next question comes from, back to the top of the queue here, from Nomi Carmona. When I try to work to bring about change in myself, everything falls apart in a painful way. I feel powerless. Why?
Because you're not the one who's bringing about the change, and you are powerless, and that's a good thing and to know. We're dependent on the light that corrects. It's these changes in us happen in response to a desire, one that we may not even fully feel consciously, but the light responds to this, and if we pray, which is to ask for this type of change, not thinking that we're doing it on our own, based on our own sensitivity, capability, insight, and reason, but on our relationship, the desired relationship with the upper force. If we ask of that, along with the efforts that we make in caring and connecting and acting above our ego, then the light that corrects comes and changes this. Because it is the only the only actual actor in reality. We're part of that. We are a part of that doesn't recognize what the nature of our connection is, and how completely good and powerful that light, that surrounding light, is for us. It's the door. It's the answer to the quality that we wish was in our heart, exists in that light. And if we ask for it, it enters the heart, and we find that the heart has changed. It's not that we do. Our doing is in the desire and in the effort, the attempt to overcome, not in the evaluation that we have successfully overcome this. No. What does it mean really to overcome and succeed in changing ourselves? What are we trying to change? We're trying to make an intimate and dependent, loving connection with that light. And that light has got the mind and the force to make changes. It's the part of us that has the mind and the force to make the changes. None of that is in the dark point that's under change, which is called individuality. All of that light comes from the connection to this force. So we should put it in the correct perspective and understand that these changes are coming from a loving force outside of us that is drawing us towards that completion.
Tony, next up is a question from MJH. Hi, this is my first time here. Welcome, MJ. Can Kabbalah help me reconnect with purpose after feeling lost? I've had a bad year and haven't seen clearly for months.
Well, yes. I mean, it's all about purpose. It is the purpose of life at its most fundamental level. So it's beyond the sort of purposes that we think about in our individual life, like what occupation and so on. This is like the big thrust of purpose. But we have to, in order to feel that, we need to look at it not just to make our current situation better in a kind of a self-help way, and I'm not saying that you're doing that, but it's important to recognize the scale on which purpose exists. There's nothing small about it. Purpose is the grand sweep of energy that brings that created everything and is bringing the creation to fulfillment, and the very absolutely critical role that you play in that whole process, that the development won't happen without your desire and involvement with it. You have to be, because all of development is dependent on the willingness for us to see it and to change. So yes, it will help you if you give it its proper perspective.
Our next question comes from Spanish-speaking viewer Miguel Medina. We were created to receive and to give. How do you explain it when you try to give and the other person rejects that gift?
It's about the reason that you're giving, not what you're giving or whether somebody else accepts it, but what is the measure of your heart? Why are you doing it? For whom are you doing it? If I'm doing the action because I want to be able to, in my reason, recognize that it is fulfillment. They accepted it. It is giving. They saw that I gave. They recognized that they really wanted what I was giving in whatever it is, and I got the feedback that says I gave. But you can't measure it that way. The bestowal is something that happens regardless of what kind of fulfillment I receive. Now, feedback is also a kind of fulfillment. It's proof to my reason that the impulse in my heart was a true impulse. Even if it's rejected by another person, that doesn't change what the original intent of the act is. Because the giving happens only on the level of intention, which is completely outside of the physical or intellectual aspect of our lives. Intention is the highest force in reality. It happens despite the reaction. That act, if it was a true desire to do good, and that was the reason you were doing it in the first place, then it is. Nothing can change that. Whether the person that you're giving to benefits from that spiritual spark or not, that's got to do with them and their level of concealment, not with what you intended. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that. There's plenty to think about there.
Next, from Spanish-speaking viewer Carlos Daniel. Good afternoon. How can I know what stage of growth I am at in the spiritual world? And he writes, greetings from Uruguay. Welcome, Carlos.
Carlos, to begin with, you can't know that. You really can't know that. And I don't really know how it helps anything to know it. The whole point is to be a giving force at every possible moment. So that's really the whole context of it. And the more we are like that, and the more connected, and the more our intention is to benefit the whole creation, the whole system, then the higher state we're in. So if your heart is more and more like that, then you know you're in a higher and higher state. Not easy to measure, but it doesn't require measurement. It just requires doing it, and the fulfillment of being able to do that, to act like the Creator, is the measure, and one does feel it when it's occurring.
Our next question also comes from a Spanish-speaking viewer, Adriana Almanza. It seems that when you embark on a spiritual path, you encounter more obstacles in life, as if the more light there is, the more darkness appears.
Well, when you start out on, and you understand that the path that you're walking is one in which you are working towards transcending the impulse of the ego, which is the nature that we were created with. How do you think that's going to happen? It's going to happen through having experiences that challenge our attachment to our ego. It's going to, and all of those things are absolute opportunities in order to allow us to work from a different place. And they're going to feel to the ego as though they are difficulties or blows. But it's because we asked, in the deepest place, we asked to be aided in this correction. And all of the experiences of life are the medium through which we relate to the Creator. And it's through our relationship with others. And behind our relationship with others is actually the relationship with the Creator. So please help me, we say, grow. I want to grow. I want to do this. Okay, so practically, here's something that would appear to you as a challenge, as a hardship. And that definition of hardship is coming from ego as the highest value, my self-concern as the highest value. If the path didn't present us with these things, what would be the purpose of the path? Nothing's happening. It's like here's a what's that hurdles? Yeah, the Olympic event. Here's your first hurdle. If you can jump this, that means you're at that level. If you can jump this one above your ego, you're at this level. But if I put nothing in front of you, or just as it always was, you will not rise in your desire to, or in your understanding of how nature treats us when it develops us. That is the process of development that's baked into nature.
Tony, we have viewers from almost every continent. It's always exciting to read the list of locations. We have viewers tuned in from India, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Salt Lake City, Utah, the Netherlands, Israel, Ontario, Shreveport, Louisiana, New York City, North Carolina, Istanbul, Alabama, Long Island, Maine, South Carolina, Switzerland, Canada, Toronto, Ghana, Africa, Minnesota, France, Charlotte, North Carolina, Venezuela, Mexico, Uruguay, Costa Rica, San Diego, Ireland, LA, Barcelona, Spain, Quebec, Botswana, Pakistan, Colombia, Peru, Chile, Egypt, Ciudad de Mexico, UK, Chicago, Portland, Oregon, California, Hungary, Argentina, and Ireland. Wow. Thank you so much, everyone, for posting those in the chat. If you want to...
That is amazing. I mean, especially exotic Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
So exotic. Can't wait to visit someday. It's so exotic. Okay, next question is coming from a Spanish-speaking viewer, Glavia Castillo. Can I bring my loved ones closer to Kabbalah? And how could I do that? Or do I have to stay on the sidelines until they reach that point in their hearts?
Well, if they know that you're studying, and the example, without talking about it, the example that you set in the changes that are happening in you, the way you are with them, without talking about it, that will warm them to it, allow them to be curious they don't need to defend themselves. And on the other hand, if you start talking about it a lot and, you know, putting any kind of a pressure on it, they will likely reject it, and you're going to have problems with it. So the best thing to do is to lead by example.
Okay, next question is also from Spanish-speaking viewer Susana Varela. What does a creator want to teach us when he makes us feel unimportant or not special? Thank you and best regards.
I don't know, because I don't know what you mean by that. If this is some kind of a nagging thing that follows a person their whole life, you know, a constant sense like that, that's a different issue than working already on the path and coming to a state where one feels that for a period of time. I think the principle is similar, but on the path, if one comes into a state, a fall in which they feel that way, this is an opportunity to work above that state. That is to nonetheless, first of all, to recognize that we all are in that position in our relationship with the upper force. We overestimate our importance, our beauty, our value. We have an abundance of self-love, actually, which is really the basic problem of the ego. You know, some people say you can't love others until you love yourself. You know, the self-love is really the problem. If the initial impulse is the love of others, the love of one is included in that love. One benefits from that love, and then. But if one is constantly in this state, then it really has got to do with a constant looking at oneself. How do I compare with other people? It doesn't matter about what. This question about the self, good, am I good enough or bad? This is not a question that is helpful. The whole point is to forget about that and get involved in the action towards one's development. The concentration on that is like that story with Lot and Lot's wife leaving Sodom when it was being destroyed. Like, don't look back. What was she looking back on? It was the self. It was, how am I doing? How is this working out for me? How do I compare? And that eventually a person on the path eventually can work their way out of that, completely away from it, and make the first impulse in an action or a thought, how do I make a better connection with others and to the whole? Mary?
Anna Mintz is asking, what is the Messiah from the perspective of a Kabbalist?
The Messiah is the pulling force that raises all of humanity. It comes from, it's based on the Hebrew word limshoch. Mashiach comes from that. Also Moshe, Moses. It also comes from this same root, and it's a spiritual root that is about the connection of the individual to the whole of their society, that society's connection to the whole of humanity, and humanity's relationship as a single creature to the upper force that created it. its relationship with that. This movement, this force that pulls us towards this reconnection of apparently separate and scattered parts into the whole of the single being that was originally created, a single soul. That force is called Mashiach. It is not a person. It's an intention, a quality, a healing and correcting force that comes from above that reunites the shattered soul of creation.
Gerald Drevia is asking, what is bestowal in Kabbalah?
It is the creator. Bestowal is an intention that is what we call the creator. And it is an impulse, an intention, which I just mentioned, the correction and reconnection, and that the action, all speech, all action, all impulses of the heart are done with the intention of connecting and benefiting through that connection, whoever is before you, and especially to those who are studying with you, who share this intention, because it rolls up into a greater and greater force.
From Spanish-speaking viewer Luis Huarachi, why is it important to walk the path in groups of 10 rather than alone?
All of reality is created in 10 states of relationship with the Creator, and every aspect of reality is a fractal built of exactly these 10 qualities of connection. All of creation is like that. And these qualities need to be all working together and felt within a person. The way in which these qualities are available to us is through what we think of as other people. Not the people themselves, but our relationship with that person. The spirituality and the Creator is not ever within the person. It's always in the relationship between these points. So we, in the study of Kabbalah, there comes a point at which people go into this kind of a structure, a kind of simulation of the complete spiritual connection to the upper force. And that's made up of our relationship with 9 other people. All of these people are represent one of these sfirot, qualities of connection with the Creator. Not that they go, this one is that one and this one is that one, but it allows for those forces to be present in a conscious, relational way within the individual and the shared heart and force that comes between these people. Those 10 relationships of the heart, those impulses of the heart with these people, reflect the wholeness of the single soul. And it's from that place, that shared space, which is connected, each person is connected by this force of the Creator, in which the real relationship with the upper force is fully attained. It's a kind of a simulator, like a flight simulator, in which a person is in touch with every aspect of creation through this relationship. All the controls of reality and experience are in those relationships. I know we're a minute or so over, but we started late, so let's go just a little bit longer.
Okay, sure. James is asking, at the beginning of the broadcast, you mentioned contact with the Creator. How do we make contact with the Creator?
We make contact with the quality of the Creator. That is, the desire to bestow, to connect and bestow, and to take care of the entire system. The more our heart becomes changed in that direction, that's not our heart, that's the Creator. And along with it, there is a heightened sensation that becomes a real relationship with this force, as tangible as it is with another person, just different in quality.
Next question is from Spanish-speaking viewer Bolivar Rosales. How can I convey and connect with others with the best of intentions if I struggle with self-esteem and it causes problems with the people around me?
Kabbalah is not going to fix this in the situation that you're talking about. All of these things get healed, let's say, changed, corrected, when doing the work on the spiritual path. If you try to do it in your current situation with people as you've known it, it's not going to work. It's going to confuse you. And the main thing that you're talking about here is the sort of obsessional concern with ourself. That's what makes for the insecurity. We're paying attention, say, to the wrong thing. So once you start working on the path and you start aiming it, the other thing is that one gets very concerned about what are other people thinking? What's their motive? What do they want out of this situation? Therefore, they may be judging me in this particular way that I don't like. It's reasonable to think that, but when you are with people who you know why they're there, why they're relating to you, and what their goal is in the relationship, then a person doesn't have to think about that anymore. Okay, it may be there sort of residually as you come out of it, but when you begin to see, tangibly feel the support, interconnection, and their need for you, because you can't really progress spiritually on your own. And everybody comes to understand and feel that to progress spiritually means to connect and to value and not judge, but to understand our dependence on this upper force. And the upper force is expressed to us. Its relationship with us is through the connection with and love of others. That's how it happens, and that becomes more and more clear to a person as they study. So leave that behind. If I have that problem in my physical everyday life, okay, leave it there. That's a completely other situation. Now you're going into a completely different environment in which the reason for people doing anything is only supportive for your development, and it'll become possible to let go of that. And I think with that, we'll end today. Those are good questions. I really enjoyed going there with you. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, everyone. We just have a few announcements before we close out. Also, one other location that was shared was South Wales, UK. So thank you for that. A few announcements. If you'd like to join KabU, if you're not already a KabU member, then we invite you to join. You can see the link in the chats. You'll gain access to several Kabbalah courses from beginners to advanced. Join the world's largest online Kabbalah community. The ability to ask instructors questions in the student forums at any time. And access to a KabU exclusive weekly webinar. Also, you get access to the next Kabbalah Revealed course with Tony, starting on November 9th. Also, if you want to support KabU, if you find our content valuable and you would like to support KabU, you can do that in one of two ways. You can become a KabU member, which I just explained, or you can make a donation, which is always appreciated. It's put to good use. It helps to produce our courses and broadcast live events like this one and maintain all of our services. And don't forget, we have a live Q&A on Zoom following this broadcast. We'd love to see you there. Thank you again for joining us today.